We are taught that our womanhood is made up of how much emotional and physical labor we can give up. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Homali and I'm basically like your internet big sis. I share advice, tell stories, and talk about all the things that nobody wants to talk about. So I put another question box up on my Instagram stories telling people to ask me for advice on anything they're struggling with right now. And I thought for today's video, I would share some advice on one of the responses I got. So someone said to me, my partner was so romantic when we first met and I feel that's gone. Am I being too needy or do I deserve more? With Valentine's Day just passing, I thought this would be the perfect topic to talk about because I know it's something that a lot of women struggle with. Now, personally, I believe a lot of women in general don't ask for enough and deserve way more than they're accepting. I know that's something I struggled with doing for a long time, and it's because the way women are socialized is always to give. We are taught that our womanhood is made up of how much emotional and physical labor we can give up. It's like I'm deemed a good woman if I stay quiet and give up my voice, or if I give up my body for my babies, or if I give up my spare time for domestic labor. And the list goes on and on. And so when we ask for stuff or when we want to take, we feel like we're asking for too much, that we don't deserve it, that we're needy or greedy, or that our standards are too high. That's not true. I'm here to remind you that it's okay to ask for what you need and want, and that you do deserve it. And it's also okay if your needs and wants change as you get older. Like for me, what I wanted in a relationship at 22 is completely different than what I need in a relationship now at 32. And I know that's why there are a lot of men out there that hate dating women as they get older, not because they expire or they lose their looks or whatever it is that these women build confidence and they will call you out on your bullshit and they have higher standards, and a lot of men cannot handle that. When you're young, you don't even know what you want. You haven't gone through enough life experiences to understand what you really need in a partner. I met my husband when I was 22, and now that I'm 32, the person I was at 22 is like dead and gone. Like, she does not exist anymore. I'm grateful to have a husband that has loved me through all these different versions of myself as I've gotten older. I know there are a lot of men out there that aren't like that. They'll hold on to that version of you that was young and naive and expect you to stay that way throughout your entire relationship, so that when you start to ask for what you want, what you need, or if you start to ask for more than what you did at the beginning of the relationship, they feel like, oh, you've changed, your standards are so high, why are you acting like this, blah, 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 blah. And oftentimes as women, we take their excuses because we've been socialized to believe that men are a certain way and women are a certain way. That was something I very much believed in for a long time. You know, I grew up in a very traditional Indian household where the man was the head of the house and what he says goes. And the woman doesn't really have an opinion or doesn't know better than the man. That the man is the provider, the woman is the caretaker, all that stuff. Now, I'm a pretty opinionated woman and I would stand up for myself quite often, but there was still a lot of things that I let slide because I was raised to believe, you know, that we had these gender roles and that men are just different and they don't operate the same way as women, especially when it came to things like emotional labor. I was taught that emotional labor is a woman's job because men just aren't emotional. They are more logical, whatever bullshit they spew at us. And you see this ideology play out in so many relationships, especially in cultures where the patriarchal conditioning is so strong. But the older I got, the more I healed, went to therapy, read books on psychology and feminism, journaled, and just like discovered myself more and found a deeper love for myself. I realized a lot of these ideologies are just a symptom of toxic patriarchal culture. It's not that women are more emotional and more in tune with ourselves and that men aren't and they just don't have that ability. It's that we've been socialized completely differently. And it started at a young age, right? Like we have always been socialized to take care of people and be emotionally in tune with people. Think about it. Why are kitchen play sets and baby dolls only marketed towards girls? Why are we always taught to be polite and never speak up? You know, we're constantly just taught that boys will be boys and to accept their behavior for what it is and then always adjust to them. We need to always fit into a man's world. And so of course men aren't taught emotional intelligence because everything is catered to them. So it makes sense. Like, why would a man be thoughtful? Why would he need to have empathy or listen or communicate properly when he's never had to really exercise those skills? We have taught women to adjust to men so much that men don't need to compromise. So now you have two two genders that have been socialized in completely different ways that don't actually align with each other, and you expect them to be in a relationship and make things work. Like, you have women that are raised to be more emotionally intelligent and to communicate and compromise and be a team player. And then you have men that are expected to be leaders that don't really communicate or listen properly, that think people should just follow them because they're a man and what they say is right, that lack a lot of emotional intelligence compared to a woman. And like, what, you expect them to make things work? Like, it just doesn't really make sense. So oftentimes, because women have to do more adjusting than men, they'll have a hard time asking for what they want, especially when it comes to things like domestic and emotional labor. Because traditionally, those two things are deemed as women's jobs and are severely undervalued in our society. Especially emotional labor, because it's more invisible, it's hard to really quantify it. So going back to the question about someone's partner not being romantic anymore, it really like ties into the fact that men don't do a lot of emotional labor. Unfortunately, a lot of men have severed themselves from the emotional part of them because that is what they've been taught from a young age. They've been taught that expressing emotions and qualities that are deemed feminine make them less manly. So things like empathy, sadness, caring, kindness, love, it's like if they express those things, then they're not man enough. And the problem you see most oftentimes is that they lack connection to that root emotion of empathy, which allows you to feel all these other things. It allows you to be yourself and allows you to connect to other people and understand what they want, understand how to be thoughtful and kind and all that stuff. And it's honestly really sad to watch. So like, when you talk to them about how you're feeling or how they're feeling, they don't even know how to connect to that emotional side of themselves because they've just like completely severed it. They don't know how to feel their feelings. And if they don't know how to feel their feelings, they can't relate to your feelings because they don't know how it feels. Again, just going back to the lack of empathy, you know? And then that's when you might find that they're calling you needy or dramatic, or like you're asking for too much, or that your standards are too high, because they just don't get it. And it's not because you're too much, it's because they're not enough. Like, they just don't know enough. They are not smart enough in that area of their life to get where you're coming from. Many women have told me when they first get into a relationship, their partner was this amazing guy, like so romantic, so thoughtful, did all these things. And then as they got further into the relationship, he stopped showing up that way. And honestly, that doesn't surprise me. I think a lot of men are like that. And if you've experienced that, it's not just you. A lot of men have been taught that their worth just comes from productivity. And so they view everything in the world as a business transaction. And to them, that makes sense because they've been severed from the emotional part of themselves. And so a lot of them have been taught on a subconscious level that women are objects. Even like the good guys, it's just a conditioning under the patriarchy. I don't think it's their fault, and I don't think they want to be that way, but it is what it is. And so when they view women as objects, they view pursuing them as a transaction rather than actually building a relationship. Do you get what I mean? Like, the beginning of the relationship to them is not actually seen as emotional labor. It's seen as more of a form of payment so that they can get what they want, which is the girl. They know that they need to do these romantic gestures and be kind and empathetic and communicate and be thoughtful because that is what is going to win the girl over. That is the currency to get into a relationship. That is the currency that will help a woman like him. To them, it's like, I did all the things that I needed to do. I got the woman I wanted, and now my job here is done. Why would I need to keep working for something that I already have, right? It's, again, very transactional. It's like once you pay for something, you get it and it's yours and that's it. And that's obviously not how women view relationships at all. Like, we have not been conditioned in that same way. We understand that deep, meaningful relationships require vulnerability. It requires communication and listening and empathy and thoughtfulness. To really make any type of relationship work, we get that you need to compromise and have teamwork and really understand each other. And I mean, it's evident, right? Even if you look outside of romantic relationships, men do not have many deep, meaningful connections, whereas a lot of women do. You'll notice that they don't get vulnerable with their friends and family. Like, I know so many women, including myself, that to open up about vulnerable emotional stuff to women we've just met. Whereas men don't have that. They don't really have a sense of community. Their only form of emotional connections are really in their romantic relationship. And the only reason they have that is because the woman carries most of the emotional labor. And it's all because they've never been taught how to do it. And I think a lot of men want to believe that they inherently don't have an emotional side to them, which is completely not true. If a guy says that to you, like, that is 100% bullshit. Because I have watched men that weren't very emotional to begin with, then go to therapy and heal and work on their traumas and become very emotionally in tune with themselves and with the people around them. I cannot stress enough that this is not something that's biological. It is more social and cultural. Anyways, because a lot of men lack empathy, it prevents them from being able to put themselves in someone else's shoes, which then in turn means they'll have a hard time communicating or being a team player. And empathy is like the root of where a lot of your emotions stem from, and it is one of the most important skills to allow you to make emotional connections. You have to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes if you want to know how to be thoughtful, or want to know how they feel, or want to know how to support them. And empathy is also a big part of how you communicate. It allows you to be vulnerable and listen to another person without getting defensive and say how you actually feel. But like, the problem is so many men don't know how they feel because they're not connected to their emotions. Now, if your partner is like this, not all hope is lost. Like, you don't need to go and dump them immediately. I know a lot of social media posts like say that you should do that and make it seem like, you know, you have to hold men to these standards. And I agree to that to a certain extent, but also we need to understand that this is like a social, cultural problem that we really need to address. And if you have a man in your life that is genuinely a good man, like, I'm not talking about someone that's like actually an abuser, like, you know, this person has a good heart and is actually trying their best to be a good, like, husband, partner, boyfriend, whatever, then this is something you can work through. Like I said before, and I'll say it again a million times over, men not being connected to their emotions is something that was socialized. Like, it was something that was taught to them, which means the good news is that they can teach themselves how to connect to their emotions again. It's just a skill that takes a bit of time to learn. And emotional intelligence is also an area that women can very much improve themselves into. Society has really failed us in teaching like kids emotional intelligence. And so, you know, it's an area that we can all improve on. It's just that women have been taught it a little bit more than men have. So to address this, I would start with like communicating your feelings and telling your partner what you need and want and how you need them to show up in the relationship. Give them examples and tell them that this is something that would make you feel closer to them. Now, I know a lot of men tend to get defensive, so if this is something you're struggling with communicating to your partner, then I would highly recommend couples therapy or couples counseling. There is absolutely no shame in trying to be able to build a stronger connection with your partner and learning how to communicate better with them, because we also have to recognize that there are some traumas that create barriers when we are trying to communicate things. You know, you might be saying something to your partner in one way and it might be triggering because of some childhood trauma they have or because of how they feel about themselves, whatever it is. And so the message isn't getting through because it's just not being communicated in a way that they are able to receive it. And if you can see that your partner is really trying to change and, you know, you guys are really trying to work on this together, you have to give each other grace because this process is difficult. It's not an easy one. You both will make mistakes, you'll both trigger each other, but you'll eventually get there. And oftentimes how you can tell that they're actively trying is if, you know, they're taking in your feedback, they're not getting defensive, they're really trying to do the things that you want them to do. Now, if you notice that your partner isn't really putting in the work, then maybe it is your time to go. Your job as a partner is not to fix them, it's to support them. And so you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. Meaning you can share all these things with them, and if they are not willing to put in the work, then there's nothing you can really do about that. Only they can do the work to fix the part of the issues that they are bringing to the relationship. Now, enough of focusing on your partner, because I have seen too many women lose themselves in a relationship because they feel like it's their job to do all the emotional labor and to fix their partner and to hold the family together. And I need to remind you, there is only so much you can do. A relationship requires two people to work at it. So if you are the only person working at it, then it's a lost cause. I really hope you don't get consumed by the relationship and lose yourself in it. Now, with all of that being said, I really encourage you to heal parts of yourself too. You can sit there and blame your partner about everything that they are not doing in this relationship, but oftentimes we ourselves are not showing up in ways that our partner needs to. It's pretty common for people to get comfortable in a relationship. Like I said before, relationships are about teamwork, and so it's very rarely that it's only one person contributing to an issue or contributing to why the relationship isn't working. You yourself might not also know how to be in a healthy relationship or communicate in a healthy way, or maybe you don't have a healthy attachment style. Those things may cause you to be a people pleaser or not communicate effectively or not be able to stick to your boundaries, whatever it is, but it is obviously detrimental to your own mental health and also to your relationship. And one thing I have learned through years of therapy is that the only way to determine what you need, want, and truly deserve in a relationship is if you work on yourself. Because I can sit here and tell you these are all the things that you need to look for in a relationship, but what I want and need in a relationship may be very different from you. I highly suggest therapy and reading books. I have a bunch of books that I've linked on my Amazon storefront that really changed the way I view myself and the world, and I'll link them in the description below. But yeah, that's where I would start if this is something you're struggling with. Okay, I'm such a dummy and I forgot to press record on this last part I was going to say, so you get this version of me now. But I wanted to end off this video by bringing it back to the question that was initially asked, which was, my partner was romantic when we first met and now I feel like that's gone. Am I being too needy or do I deserve more? The point I'm trying to get across in this get ready with me is that if you've already communicated with your partner that you want them to be more romantic or any other issues that you're seeing coming up in the relationship and they're not being receptive to that feedback or they're getting defensive, then there may be a deeper underlying issue of your partner not being in tune with their emotions. It's hard to be romantic when you're not in tune with your emotions. How can you anticipate your partner's needs and wants or be thoughtful or show your partner genuine love in a way that they want to receive it if you're not emotionally intelligent? And this emotional intelligence piece goes for both partners. Like I said before in the video, like everyone can improve their emotional intelligence. It's just that I find men lack in that area more than women just because of the way we've been socialized. So this is an issue I see a lot of women have with their partners. And that's why I kind of spoke to it from a woman's perspective. Now, if you're in a position where you are trying to figure out what you deserve, or if you're asking for too much, or if you're needy, then that requires you to do some inner reflection. Only you can truly determine what you need and deserve in a relationship. Like, I can sit here and tell you, you deserve way more, like dump him, he's an asshole, whatever it is. But if you don't truly feel like you actually deserve more, and if you don't have the strength to stick to your boundaries, then you will never deserve more. So the only way you'll ever know what you truly deserve is doing that inner healing and discovering your needs and wants. Anyways, that's all I have to say for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and this is the final look. If you want to ask for advice, ask me a question, want me to cover a topic in my next Get Ready With Me, let me know in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram. And if you did like this video, please do not forget to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel, and maybe even share it with someone that needs to see it. As always, thank you so much for all the love and support you guys constantly show me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!